Hey, all you people out there in movie land. I'm not really too much of a fan of action movies. I enjoy them, sure, from time to time. And the good ones I love, and stupid Hollywood ones I usually don't like all that much. I went to see Transformers. That review's already up, so you can see that if you want to know how I feel about that movie. But one of the films this summer that I have looked most forward to is a movie that actually came out in the United States on the 8th of April this year, and I think it was at the beginning of, or the middle of May, it came out in England and the rest of Europe. So this movie I've been waiting for a long time to get my hands on, and it is Joe Wright's third movie, I think it is, Hanna. Joe Wright is the director behind the 2005 version of Pride and Prejudice and Atonement, both starring Keira Knightley. I saw Atonement just like a week ago, just to get some Joe Wrightness in me for this movie, so I can maybe compare his style a little bit. And I really liked Atonement. It's one of those films, just like Tangled, where I think the trailer did the movie it did injustice to the film itself. The trailer made me not want to see that movie when it first came out. Granted, my entire opinion on film has changed since then, but I don't think that's the only reason why that movie seemed unappealing from the trailer. I bet if I watched the trailer now, I would not like it either. Feel like I do not want to see this. But I ended up really liking Atonement, which made me more excited for Hanna. Now, my excitement for Hanna has dwindled a little bit and gotten more humbled, if anything, simply because of the fact that I saw the reviews when it came out in the United States. I saw some reviews in some English magazines when it came out there, but I saw it before I saw any Swedish reviews, so Swedish reviewers did not affect me. But I saw opinion of the film from people that had downloaded it illegally here in Sweden, and said they thought the film was mixed. And that's the opinion I've gotten from most Swedish reviewers after having seen the film twice, is that the film gets mixed reactions from whoever you ask. Some people love it, some people don't like it at all. It's a really split film, at least here in Sweden, whereas in the rest of the world it seemed pretty, accepted that it was good but not great. But anyway, I've been looking forward to this movie since the beginning of the year, even before the American release, reading about it in Total Film, when they were giving their year, the year ahead of us article at the beginning of the year. And my movie summer has pretty much been driven by two films, Hanna and Super 8. Which one's better of those? If you only can see one, go see Super 8, that's a better film. But I really liked Hanna. And I think the reason why I like Hanna is, of course, because it's a great movie, but also I think that because of the fact that my expectations were sort of sky high and then got humbled, it helps me like this film. The movie stars Saoirse Ronan. Her name is impossible to pronounce. I think it's Welsh. I've seen it written, the pronunciation written in Total Film and on the Wikipedia page. I still cannot figure it out. I'm gonna have to wait until someone says it out loud. I'm almost kind of waiting for her to get an Oscar nomination just so I can hear someone there say it. Anyway, it stars her. She plays the little sister Cecilia in Atonement. And she is the main character in The Lovely Bones, and one of my favorite, forgotten little, not children's, but one of, young adult movies, City of Ember, which I really like, too, and liked her in. It also stars Eric Bana as her father, Eric Heller. Of course, Saoirse plays Hanna, the main character, and Cate Blanchett, who plays Marissa Wiegler, a tough, emotionally crazy FBI agent, CIA agent, on pursuit, trying to get Hanna and Eric. The movie has a different, the reason why this is not in any way an American action film. If anything, I had a friend who wanted to go see the movie who asked me if it reminded anything of Kick-Ass and Sucker Punch, which was what she was hoping for, and I sort of said that conceptually it has some relation, you could say. I tried to put explain the film before I saw it as Leon meets Kick-Ass, with Hit Girl and all that stuff, and the realism of Leon, And that is somewhat true, but of course this is not, like, if you want to say a standard American action film in any way. It's more down to earth, and even though it has a plot that most people would probably explain as action movie meets drama meets grim fairy tale, it kind of, it doesn't really fit into any one, into any one genre, and that's why the movie is good. Also, one reviewer here in Sweden pointed out that she thought the movie was... She essentially accused it of being a ripoff, saying that it was too similar to other films that sort of have the same same structure, specifically pointing at Joe Wright ripping off La Femme Nikita by Luc Besson. And my entire line of thought on that was, I'd already seen the movie once by then, so I'd already gotten my opinion that I thought Hanna was great, is that just because movies borrow from each other all the time. Look at Quentin Tarantino. I mean, pretty much every single movie he's made, while in a lot of cases revolutionary and really, really good, and the man has not made a single bad movie yet. And we don't blame him for it because he is celebrating other films. And even though this movie doesn't directly try to show that it's celebrating other films, it is sort of like Super 8, celebrating a style of filmmaking that isn't really around all that much anymore. And I kind of like, already from the first friggin' screen, like when the title screen appears, which basically, Hannah's out in the forest, she kills a deer. I'm not going to spoil this movie for you, by the way. I actually took notes in the movie theater the second time I went to see it. So I will make an analysis of Hanna in text or review form, like video review, or maybe both, but not now. I will wait until I have the film, like, in my video collection, my DVD collection, when it actually comes out on disc to do that. But I will try to be as spoiler-free as possible. Anyway, the film starts in Finnish Lapland, and Hanna's out hunting deer. And what basically happens is she shoots this deer. She shows off that she can disappear pretty much. She shoots this deer. She walks up to the deer. We get to see from the deer's point of view how she just proclaims, "I just missed your heart." Then she picks out a Luger and shoots at the camera, and then the red screen, the screen turns red, like, you know, like just boom, red, and then the letters Hanna appear. And already from that like opening shot, I'm like, wow, that smells like the 70s. That's kind of the kind of thing you don't do anymore. That's almost like an exploitation thing. And already from that was where that movie got me right away. Is that it was interesting, and the thing is, Hanna is, because it's so down to earth, at least in like Hanna's own tone. Like, her own story is sort of very, very, like, quiet and like down to earth. It makes the film, like, it all works towards the film's, like, advantage. I got to really like Hanna because even though she does these atrocious things throughout the film, her only goal really is that her father has trained her in combat, like in both unarmed and armed combat. He has taught her all these facts about the world, like from how much testicles a blue whale has, to all these languages. We hear her speak Arabic, Spanish, I think Italian. She speaks, of course, English, German. She speaks a lot of languages. She knows a lot about a lot of things. But of course she doesn't know how to, like, function in society. But anyway, all these things that she's been taught have all gone toward her one goal she has, which is to kill Kate Blanchett's Marissa Wiegler, which is the reason why they're hiding up in the forest in the first place, because this woman has killed Hannah's mother, and according to her father, wants to kill Hanna too. So Hanna is pretty much, it's a revenge flick. She's out to get revenge against a woman who she honestly doesn't really know anything about. The revenge is not her own. The revenge is her father's idea, and his agenda has become her own simply because she's been taught that that's the only thing she has to do. When the movie switches gears from just like starting up here, when she ends up in Morocco, the movie is basically, you can see like a road trip as well as a revenge flick, because she goes from Finnish Lapland to Morocco to confront Marissa Wiegler, and then travels through Morocco up to Germany to meet with her father once her job is done. And along the way, the movie like switches. It switches from being an action film to being like this just like here's the fairy tale part, this explorative journey for Hanna trying to figure out who she is, because as soon as she gets into any sort of like situation where there are other people involved, she has no idea how to react. She has been taught by her father where she's supposed to have come from. I live in Leipzig. Population 1.7 million peoples. We live at 742 Weisingerplatz. My best friends are Rudi Gunther and blah 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 blah. I like sports and literature and sports, especially tennis and athletics. She has this one thing she says about everything. Like as soon as anyone asks where she's from or what she's doing. And it's kind of sweet because she is just a girl, not just this killing machine, and she reacts with genuine. Like this is a lot because of Saoirse Ronan's superb acting as this character. She looks at everything with like this really genuine like curiosity, but it also frightens her to a certain extent. And one of the scenes I have to discuss is there is one scene where she enters a Moroccan city for the first time, and she gets a room at this low-rent hotel, and the dude helps her, the guy that owns the place helps her, and he turns on her TV and turns on the water kettle for her, and then leaves her. And she's fascinated by everything because she's never been around. She just says that I know a little bit about electricity because she has never actually experienced it before. They didn't have electricity up in the cabin they lived in. But where most movies would go for the comedic aspect of this, you see this especially in cartoons a lot. You see this, when people react to technology for the first time, and it becomes like hilarious. They tip out water, they turn off lights until lights blow out and stuff like that. No, what happens here is that Hanna essentially goes nuts. She loses it, and rightfully so, because that's how I think someone who has never been around electricity or modern appliances before would react in that situation. The water kettle starts boiling, and it's standing on a tray which starts to vibrate, and it scares her. The light is on. It's one of those like fluorescent light tubes, so it's like almost making this low hum. The TV starts. The telephone starts ringing, which is kind of odd. Who's calling her? No one knows she's there. The television starts showing like news footage with people shooting guns, and she basically becomes so frightened by all these noises, and she doesn't know where they're coming from or what's going on. She stumbles into the shower, and she gets wet, and then she just runs. She just bolts. She doesn't know what she's going to do. It's terrifying. And I really like that they actually did something with that scenario, which is a very common scenario, and made it different and made it more serious. That being said, one of the things that doesn't really work in the film, there are two things that I think really are out of place in this film, and that is one, the villains, and two, the family Hanna encounters. Hanna meets up with this British family in Morocco, and they're trekking from northern Africa back to England, and so she meets these people, I think, like 3 times before she actually meets up and actually starts going with them. She meets them randomly, and their daughter is this stereotypical, like, idiot girl who's so superficial and talks with this really over-the-top English accent. Yeah, it's not your fault if you can't speak English. MIA couldn't speak English. She was like 8 because she was like a refugee from Sri Lanka, and now she's like a superstar in America too. It's like she feels like she's out of place, and the entire family feel like they're out of place, except for the little brother. There's the father, the mother, and the two kids, and the only character that really fits, maybe two. The father's okay, and the son feel natural, but as for the mother, played by Olivia Williams, who I most recognize from Wes Anderson's Rushmore, she is so over the top. Basically, I would like to say that the parents in this movie are like the parents from Easy A. They're fun to listen to, but in the grand context of the film they're in, they kinda actually work against the film, even though they're entertaining. Because, except for them, Hanna has a pretty serious tone, at least like overall. The villains will tie into what I'm trying to say with that, but I just want to finish up with the parents. The parents are... They're like openly discussing sex and stuff in front of their kids in a way that I don't think parents would do. It just feels out of place. And like the daughter that befriends Hanna, I don't know, she's just annoying. And again, this Swedish reviewer who pointed out that she thought the movie pretty much ripped off La Femme Nikita, she loved the daughter. She thought the daughter was the best part of the film, and I actually thought the daughter was probably the weakest thing because maybe I'm just out of fashion, but I kind of feel like those kind of kids don't exist. And if they really do exist and are that fucking stupid, they deserve to get shot in the head. But then, okay, then there's the villains, and they help make this movie feel make it feel less real. Because even though it is an action movie blended with drama and a fairy tale, and the entire premise of it is, of course, over the top, at least in the way that makes it feel like, oh, this could never happen. It still has it has a realism to it, which the villains kinda, I don't know. Cate Blanchett, while trying to find Eric Heller, Eric Bana, and Hanna, she recruits an old friend who is this German leather homosexual, like blonde leather homosexual who has these skinheads working for him. The German guy, who I was sitting there through half the movie trying to figure out who he was, I eventually realized, oh my god, that's Lord Beckett from Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3. And I'm like, what? Oh wow, that's a change in character. But anyway, these characters, all of them, are funny, all these Germans. But again, just like the family, they're so over the top that it makes it like they don't feel like they fit in with the basic story that Hanna. It feels like everyone that's chasing or following Hanna don't fit into what Hanna is doing. And I guess you could argue that that's the point, that the film and Hanna don't fit together, just like how Hanna doesn't fit into the society that she has entered. But these characters aren't real characters. They're almost cartoon characters in a way. The goofy kid, the sex crazed parents, and the crazy homosexual German guy. And Cate Blanchett is also horribly over the top. She pretty much plays her Russian dominatrix from Indiana Jones if she gave that character the Katharine Hepburn accent from Aviator. And I kind of like it because this is a better movie than Indiana Jones 4, so it's kind of funny to see her do that character like in a better film. But again, she's sort of over the top, and it can get distracting, but not in the same way as the German skinheads or the family, because you kind of get the feeling that Marissa Viegler is kind of like, she is mentally unsound to begin with. And even though you could say the same thing about the family and the Germans, with her character, it kind of feels in line with what she's been doing and the backstory she's given. That she's crazy. We know that from the start. The first thing we see her do is that she's like the first scene of her, we don't even see her face. She's brushing her teeth, and we see from her back. But we also get to see like she doesn't just brush her teeth. She has like all those cleaning tools that dentists have. And we see like 2 or 3 shots of that, of her cleaning her teeth, and they show like, the entire row. She has all of these disgusting, horrible metal prongs that she shoves in between her teeth. And it's like, oh, she's a perfectionist. She's crazy. So the movie introduces her character as crazy, and even though it introduces the other characters that are crazy as well, her craziness actually feels more real and more threatening also. Now, when talking about Joe Wright's directing of this film, like when I saw Atonement, there's one scene in Atonement which really, really like impressed me. There's this 4 or 5 minute long shot of James McAvoy's character walking down a beach during World War II, and you get to see all these horrible things. You get to see they must have hundreds of extras. I don't think it's computer. It can't be computer made. It's got to be real. It feels real, and he walks down this beach, and you get to see all these people standing up, like singing. They're shooting injured horses and all these things. It's a horrible scene, but it's also beautifully shot, so it makes everything feel more real and makes everything feel so much worse. And what I was really hoping was, I hope that Hanna was going to have something similar to that, and it does. It has a couple of scenes like that. I again, with my notes, I actually sort of counted the long takes, at least at the beginning of the film. Like when Hanna first enters the cabin they live in, it is a 2 or 3 minute shot when they're talking to each other, and like Eric Bana's sitting in the I guess you say the living room, where he's sitting on the lower floor, and she walks up the stairs and goes into her bed, and then they swoop back down and follow her, and it's really impressive. But the most impressive long take in this film is one where Eric Bana's character is on his way. He I don't know exactly where he is. I think he's entered Germany. He's entered Germany, and he is slowly making his way to the rendezvous point where he and Hanna are going to meet. And he's being followed. And this is an entire long take. Like him just coming up out of the subway, him walking down into another subway tunnel, and he's being followed. The camera's swooping around him to show the guy following him, showing what's in front of him. And then he gets down into this underground plaza, but underground just an underground area with pillars everywhere, and all of a sudden all these guys come out and they start fighting. The fight is pretty well choreographed, and it's all in one take, which makes it feel a whole lot better. And because that's one problem this film has, is that it suffers from American editing when it comes to some of the fight scenes. Some of the fight scenes feel really, they're closely shot, so you can't really see what's going on, with just arms flying everywhere, people just doing this, and there's people falling down, and they cut, cut, and you don't know what's going on. And just like Transformers, ironically Transformers 3 was better with that than the previous two movies, it kind of, you get a sense of what's going on, but not enough so that you actually feel like you have to pay that much attention. Maybe just wait and see when you finally get to see a real blow hit. Now, this problem is only apparent in 2 or 3 2 or 3 fight scenes. Basically 2 fight scenes really bothered me with this, so it's not a lot. But I would have liked to see it avoided completely, because Joe Wright seems to know what he's doing when it comes to camera work. Granted, this is his first action film, but that since he also has, I think 3 or 4 fight scenes that are really well shot, I kind of got spoiled and wanted all of them to be good. Especially Hanna and her father have a training fight at the beginning of the film. It's the first fight scene, and that one's probably the worst shot of all. Which I think they shot that part of the film first, also, so that could also explain that maybe they just looked at that, and when they were finally they looked at that when they got back from Finnish Lapland and realized, oh wait a minute, we can't do that scene again, but we can avoid that for the rest of the film. There's also a thing is that this movie is really well shot. The camera work is great, and that's one of the reasons why I like it more than American action films, because most American action films are just a lot of American films in general, just shot as point of view shots, shot A, shot B, back and forth conversation style, or just shot as I said, with this whole what they call MTV style editing, where everything's just crazy and shit's blowing up and you're not really seeing what's going on. But there are some really great shots here, especially I like to say during the running sequences. Hanna obviously being chased by all these people all the time. I think that the fight, the scenes where she's running, are really well shot. When she's escaping a base, in the beginning of the film in Morocco, there are like scenes where like you follow underneath soldiers' feet. You get to see entire shots of soldiers' feet. You get to see from above. You get to see like Hanna running through these dark vent-like tunnel areas and stuff like that. And it's really well shot, except for some moments where I think like the movie's trying to be too artsy. Like there's one moment where Hanna is like running through this corridor and the camera spins around on her face like 50 times. I'm like, okay, that's taking it too far. You don't have to go that far. And granted, if you have music like the Chemical Brothers, which this movie's entire soundtrack is comprised of, I get that it can be easy to get carried away with that kind of stuff, but it kind of feels like that was a little too much. But overall, great camera work. I really liked it. It really helped make the movie more interesting and made it worth wanting to go see it again and take these notes that I took. Like most of this stuff, I will save for my like real review when I'm actually more prepared. Since I've not even read this while I'm talking. I'm just trying to remember what I have in my head. Let's see. Oh yeah, I mentioned how the parents remind me of Easy A. Oh yeah, one thing I should point out is the fact when I'm just talking about the music anyway is that like Hanna, there is like this one point at the beginning of the film where Hanna asks what music is, what it feels like, since she doesn't know what music is, and it's kind of interesting how music doesn't enter the film until like Hannah's father gives her an escape. He tells her, because he has prepared her for killing Marissa, as I said, and like when he finally brings out this thing that allows Hanna to leave, when he finally like gives his permission pretty much for her to decide if she wants to leave or not, as soon as like the outside world even like appears and gives her like an outlet, that's when the music starts kicking in. Up to that point, the entire film has no music in the background because it's not necessary, but it's like as soon as the real world that has music is even mentioned properly, that's when the music kicks in, and that's great. I think that's pretty much all I had to say, at least at this point. Great shot film, great acted film, has a plot that's pretty straightforward. There are no, like, you know, big twists in this film. You know, like, I'm not going to say what the whole, like, the little plot twist there is, but if you can't figure it out, at least not, like, if you can't figure this plot out, if you don't know almost when you enter the film what it is and what Hannah's whole quest of finding out who she is will boil down to, you need to watch more movies, because it's nothing that I think even Joe Wright is trying to hide. It's just something that Hanna needs to hear, and it just comes into play in the final, like, the third act, when Hanna actually does find out. So yeah, it's a movie that's a little schizophrenic, because all the characters don't really fit into like, all the characters don't really fit into the story that Hanna is going on. Both the villains, the friends she encounters, and even one of her father's old associates who lives in this abandoned amusement park. Like, even he feels crazy in a way that I'm willing to accept. He acts crazy because he seems crazy. He's a fucking bum. He lives in an abandoned house in the middle of a fucking old, like, broken down amusement park. That's okay. The other characters feel like they shouldn't be crazy. At least not as crazy as they are. The family is a normal British family. They even show scenes where they're actually acting, like, over-the-top happy instead, and that kind of just like feels like juxtaposed with what we just saw and learned about them. It doesn't fit in, but it's a film that is really, really interesting, especially if you are interested in filmmaking, like as an art form beyond just entertainment. It is a film that will probably make you think more than most films will. I know it made me think a whole lot more than most films do, because I could follow along with what Joe Wright was doing, you know, with the camera and with the editing and all that, and with the acting as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting this movie on disc, so I can probably make a real analysis of it, even though this video turned into more of an analysis than I was planning. Most areas this movie's already gone from the theaters, so you can't really like go see it, and I'm not going to recommend you go download it because that's evil. But when it comes out on disc, I recommend you definitely check out Hanna, because it is a film starring great actors, especially Saoirse Ronan, who you should probably keep an eye on, because she is probably going to be big unless something happens to her, because hey, she's British, and British people seem to become pretty good actors. If they're good when they're kids, they seem to be good when they're adults. So yeah, go see Hanna, or like wait for it and go see it when it comes out on disc. I know I want to see it again. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Have fun, everyone.